Well, welcome back to Base Camp. This is episode 4. And I gotta say, I gotta ask, I gotta check in, are you up to date? Are you current? Are you keeping current? And have you seen how these little pieces are building together? Have you been wrestling with any of the questions that I left you with after each episode? I mean, you're not trying to cheat, are you? Hoping that someone's going to do the work for you that only you can do for you? I can't make you have faith. I can only help you follow along. So we will start with, remember that faith has a starting point. Everything has one, but sometimes we forget that faith has a starting point too. It begins somewhere. And once upon a time, you weren't sure what to believe, or you kind of believed nothing, and then someone came along and they said, here. And they gave you some thoughts, they gave you some stories, stuff like that. So you jump in on that, you think, wow, that was interesting, and then you age. Bummer, I know, right? You got older and you became more sophisticated in your thinking, more mature in your understanding, and you begin to notice a gap between what you were told and what you have experienced. And most of us don't do really well with conclusions. So you never said, okay, I have gone through, I've looked at all the evidence, and now I will walk away from everything because I have found that it was all false. Most people just get kind of that niggling question here or there, and they don't like feeling unsure. They don't like the way that made them feel, and so they don't usually like to do study, and so they let that stuff kind of linger in the background, and while the rest of their lives keeps moving forwards. They didn't intentionally abandon faith, but they got distracted. Maybe you got distracted and you kind of walked away. And maybe they thought that faith would just follow them all on its own. But it doesn't. And so now we're in the midst of a base camp for faith. A starting point or a restarting point for faith that is targeted more to us as adults and not so much as kids. This is a place that we can come back to, a place that we can invite others to come into so that we can, together, focus on the basics. And it's really hard to wipe the slate totally clean from everything that you ever knew before because we just don't work like that. We all have ties and memories and impressions that were created years and years ago, but we're trying to take it all the way back to the beginning. So we're trying to ask some of the fundamental questions together. We're going on this journey, this road trip in earnest pursuit of Jesus as a group and not just as individuals. So today, you're so lucky you're here today. Today we're going to tackle something that we've all wrestled with before. Today we're going to look at the big one, or at least this big one, in the context of faith and religion, the role of rules, right? Yeah, thank you. Every religion has these pesky rules, right? Every religion has a rule maker, and guess what? It never gets to be us, does it? Unless, of course, you start your own religion, then, of course, you can go about making up your own rules, making up your own holidays, Festivus for the rest of us, right? All religions have rules. There's the 5 pillars of Islam, there's the 10 commandments, there's the Sermon on the Mount. Rules and principles and guiding documents. Every religion has them. Now, because we don't get to make the rules, we find that we are frequently pushing up against them. And we all get stuck on the rules. So I'm not going to poke fun at other groups, except our group. So within the Christian circle, we have got lots of divisions that always see things just a little bit differently. There's the Catholics, and then there's the Orthodox, and then the Protestants. And oh my goodness, within Protestants, there are just about 1 million different versions. So as I was growing up, you get to watch, you overhear, and you just pull stuff in of what's going on around you. And there were the Brethren, and there were the Baptists, and there were the Pentecostals, and the Presbyterians, and the Alliance, and the Anglicans, and they each had their own set of rules. And then I had heard that there were Methodists, and I heard that the Methodists didn't have enough rules. And with all of these systems, we ensured that there was enough guilt and enough shame to go around for all of us. There was a well-developed judgment culture to make sure that we all had been judged for something, somewhere, at some point. And we were all ongoing, regularly afraid of being judged. And you might still feel that way right now, right? There's that sense of being judged. It's always kind of lingering out there. Somebody, and maybe you buy a new pair of pants or a new pair of shoes or whatever, you feel like, what if? What are they going to say? So why are there all these rules? Why is it such a part of religion? Why do we bump into all of this rule stuff when approaching religions? Let's be honest, okay? This is also what we rebel or want to rebel against. Can't tell me what to do, blah, blah, blah. And odds are pretty good that someone here today left a church, left a religion because of the rules. I don't want to be a part of any of that. So today, in a general way, we are going to talk about the relationship between religions and rules, and specifically what rules have to do with a God that says that He cares about us. That's where we're going. Rules always assume a relationship. Whenever you have rules, there is some kind of relationship. If you are accountable to a set of rules, you are in some type of a relationship. You might be in a family model. You were born into a family, and then your parents started making and giving you rules. They didn't make rules to make you part of the family. You were already part of the family, and then they established rules. The rules probably adjusted as time went by. There's rules for a kid, rules in junior high, rules in high school, and so on. And you kept growing until you outgrew those older rules. You grew up and you grew out of those rules, but you were still a part of the family. When you were younger, there were rules not to become part of the family, but because you were part of the family. Your parents set rules for you. Sometimes you liked them better than your friends' parents' rules, and sometimes you didn't. Parents only set rules for their own kids. We have all met kids from other families whom we would like to set some rules for, right? There are times that we'd like to suggest to the neighbor's children that things will go better for everyone if you just never come out of your house, right? As soon as we move, well, then feel free to come back out and see the sun. But you, I hope, do not call up your neighbors and say, hey, can I talk to your daughter for a minute, please? Yeah, thanks. Hi, Marianne. Have you finished your homework yet? I see the lights are still on in your room. What are you still doing up? It's way past your bedtime, young lady. Lights out was 2 hours ago. You don't do that. I hope you don't do that, because they're not your kids, right? And in the family model, rules are for members of the family. They might very well be very good rules for other people too, but others are not bound by them. The rules don't make you part of the family. The rules are because you are part of the family. Model number 2 is the club model. And in this model, you agree to keep a certain number of rules, a collection of rules, in order to get in and begin the relationship. So when you join a club, they give you a contract that you read, or you are supposed to read, and then you agree to it, you sign it. Then you do what they ask you to do, what they need you to do, and then you sign it, you're in the club. Then if you break the rules, you're what? You're out, right? The club model could also be understood as the employee model or the fraternity model. For family, you get the rules after the relationship is established. For club, you get the rules first, and then the relationship is established. So wherever there are rules, wherever you are accountable to a set of rules, you are in a relationship of some sort. Now, if you take these systems and you transpose them over into religious systems, you can see why this is kind of confusing. Because which one is it? Are you in with God? I mean, no matter what you do, you're stuck with each other? Here are the rules to live by. Get going. Or, here are the rules. You better keep behaving or you're going to get kicked out. Or, is it the neighborhood association model? Are you in because all human beings are in? But you can expect to get mean letters in your mailbox. I can't kick you out, but I can make you feel very unwelcome until you follow the right rules the right way, my way. Here's some shame for you. And I will never be fully happy with you as a human being, but I will put up with you. Hearing these options, you will each think differently. Some of you will instantly begin thinking theologically. Some of you are going to be thinking emotionally. And there is no doubt that there is a huge emotional component to this whole God thing. Is there a God? Is there not? Is that God personal? And what mixes it all up is that some of you were taught family, but you feel like you got shifted into the club model. Some of you were taught clubs, so you have never ever felt family. Boy, oh boy, right now, if all the stories could come out, wouldn't that be something? Who's got a great shunning story, right? Even if you don't embrace the Christian story, at some point you will wrestle with, how does my behavior line up? What does my behavior line up against? Am I okay? What standard are we going by? Is it up to me? Does my opinion even matter in something of this magnitude? Am I in or am I out? I mean, I say I'm a good person, but what is good? Does my opinion matter? How am I supposed to know? So to help with this discussion, let's go back to one of the oldest documented set of laws ever given. It's not the oldest, but it does slide in probably at about the third oldest in human history. It is the most documented because it has found its way into Jewish literature and Islamic literature and Christian literature. It is the most well-known, and so now, without further ado, allow me to introduce you to the one, the only, 10 Commandments. These bad boys rolled out on the stony scene in about 1446 BC, and they were a big hit right from the very start. The story goes that these commandments, or these laws, were given by God to Moses. And that's what the Jews believe. You know what, though? That's also what the Muslims believe. And that's what Christians believe. But you need to work on this on your own. What is it that you believe? Now, these guys are famous. Almost everyone has heard of the 10 Commandments. You know what's even more amazing? Is that almost no one knows what all 10 of them are. Incredible yet true. I mean, honestly, how hard is it to remember 10 things? Most kids can name you 10 Pokemon at the drop of a hat. There was a time that many of us could name Jennifer Aniston's 10 boyfriends. The 10 Commandments are like past Stanley Cup contenders. I know they exist, but I really seem to have no idea where they are, what they are. So 2 of those 10 Commandments kind of rise to the top. We hear about them a little bit more. Thou shalt not committeth adultery. Thou shalt not murdereth. And maybe there is something about being honest in there. I don't know. Thou shalt not stealeth. The rest are less known, and so we figure they can't really be all that important, right? I'm probably doing them anyway. The other thing that you probably didn't know about the 10 Commandments, but after today you will, and you can use this on your ordination exam, if someone were to hand you a Bible and say, "Are you sure it's in there?" And you would say, "Well, of course I'm sure it's in there. Somewhere." I mean, it's in the Bible. Yeah, that's where it is. That's where we keep them. So I'm going to give you some of the insider information. So the next time this comes up at a party or at an office mixer, you can just roll this out with confidence, okay? So you're going to repeat after me. And you can do this if you're watching a church online as well, or maybe listening to the podcast. Say it proud. Say it loud. Exodus 20. Okay, one more time. Deuteronomy 5. Wait, what? That's right, they're in there twice. So good, they're in there twice. And you know what? That's another excellent question for you to work on this week. Why are they recorded in the Bible twice? Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5. 2 times. Now, before we go diving into these, remember in the last couple of episodes we've been talking about Abraham. Yeah, right. Chart number 1, please. Abraham was promised that he was going to be a great nation. The problem was that Abraham didn't have any children. He was old, and you know what? He was getting older, and maybe just a little bit panicky. So Abraham and Sarah, his wife, have a little chat, and she says, I can't seem to have any children, but do you know who can? My handmaiden can. Boom! Let's try that and see if we can't solve God's problem for him. So Abraham and handmaiden Hagar go setting about fixing things on their own, and along comes a bouncing baby boy who is named Ishmael. Then a little later on, God's promise is fulfilled, and Sarah is pregnant, and she has a son named Isaac. So it turns out that Abraham actually ends up with 2 sons. This gets interesting, and you should totally go and read this story on your own sometime this week. Now, this brings up kind of an interesting or a complicating fact, depending on whether or not you're kind of a glass half empty or a glass half full person. In Islam, Ishmael is considered the son of blessing. In Judaism and Christianity, Isaac is considered the son of blessing. And right there, we have a big disagreement, sending these major world religions on different paths. So just for full disclosure, there is teaching about the idea that Ishmael is the son of blessing. The problem is that it was taught about 600 years after Jesus by the prophet Muhammad, who brought all of this info together, and he began weaving his narrative that tied all the people that he was talking to back to Ishmael, then back to Abraham, and thus back to God. So Isaac had a couple of sons. One of them was named Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. God changed Jacob's name to Israel, and now we have 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph was one of the brothers. He was not liked by his other brothers because he got a coat of many colors, also more recently known as the Technicolor Dream Coat. Brothers put him in a pit, sold him to some slave traders, shipped him off to Egypt. While he was there, became the prime minister of Egypt. There's a famine all across the land, but Joseph heard from God about it, planned ahead, stored up food. Joseph's brothers are in deep food trouble, but they hear that there's a lot of food in Egypt. So they eventually pack up all of Abraham's family, his great-great-grandkids, and everyone heads off to Egypt. They prosper, they multiply in Egypt and become a nation. So much so that the Egyptians get nervous. And they tell Pharaoh, you had better do something with those Hebrews before they cause us big trouble. So they came up with a solution. Let's enslave them. 400 years in slavery, multiple generations, and all they know is slavery. But still, they kept telling each other stories about Father Abraham. Do you know the name of any of your relatives from 400 years ago? Kids, there was a man named Abraham, and God promised him that one day his family would be a nation. Oh, there's a hand in the back. So are we that nation? Because we're slaves. Something didn't work out right. Don't worry, because God also promised Abraham that the whole world would be blessed through us. Same hand in the back again. You know we're slaves though, right? Is this the blessing for everyone else? I know we're slaves. And religion always has a way of getting you in sticky situations in the real world. When you face the, but what about this right now, right here kind of questions. How do we balance what I'm supposed to believe with what I am experiencing? Just like you, right? You're in the same spot. This is what it was so confusing when I look at circumstances around me. How do I put that together with what I learned? So for 400 years, there were stories about Abraham, and he had a son who had a son, and there were dreams, and there was famine, and there was lots of food and prosperity, then slavery. Most of that was so long ago. All those promises were so long ago, as if any one of those promises are still going to come true. You just keep telling us those stories so that we have faith and hope, and we won't give up. Then out of the blue, one day, a man shows up. Moses. Moses goes to see Pharaoh, and he says the big line, "Let my people go." And Pharaoh says, "No, I'm not going to let your people go." And so Moses says, "Okay, God warned you, watch this." And then nature just freaks out. There's locusts and boils and gnats and frogs and animals dying, and one thing after another, and the whole Egyptian economy is wrecked. Everything that they just took for granted or gave credit to some other god just crashed. And eventually Moses leads the people of Israel away from Egypt, so this is all unexpected at the very least. Side note, did you know that the name Moses appears in the Quran more than any other name? The Moses story is not just a Jewish thing. It is a Jewish thing. And it's a Christian thing, and it's a Muslim thing. This is history, not just a nifty old story. So the people and Moses head out, leave Egypt. About 3 weeks later, they end up at Mount Sinai. Next scene, right? Moses goes up the mountain to get God's law. Now, keep this in mind. All these people know, all their parents knew, all their grandparents knew, is slavery. They have always had kind of some version of their own society, but it all existed within the context of Egyptian slavery. So according to the story, they're all at Mount Sinai, and Moses goes up, and God's going to give him this revelation, the first set of laws. And part of it is the 10 Commandments, and you can read those in Exodus and Deuteronomy. Yes, you are doing so very well. We are going to read together the intro, the prelude to the 10 Commandments. And you're going, exactly, that's what I wanted to hear. That's the part you normally skip over when you read a book, right? Don't waste my time with the introduction, just get me to those talking points. But here, it's going to give us a clue or an insight as to how religion and God and rules all fit together. So we're going to go to Exodus 20, starting at verse 1, midway in. And God spoke all these words. Verse 2, I am the Lord your God who, and wait, hold on. What are you saying here with this your thing? If you are our God, that would make us your people. Yes. Well, when did that happen? How did that happen? I feel like this is the first that I'm hearing about this. I mean, we've been in slavery for 400 years, and then you drag us out into the desert with a whole bunch of miracles, and now suddenly you are our God, and we are your people? We haven't even done anything. Who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I am the Lord your God, who has done something for you, and you have done nothing for me. I'm the Lord your God who sent a deliverer into your darkest time when you had given up hope, when Abraham had become a fairy tale that you tell your kids before bed so that they don't give up hope. I did what nobody expected. I sent a deliverer into Egypt to come for you, and I dragged you out. I have done the miraculous and I have done the spectacular for you, and you have done nothing for me. Yeah. You're right. We don't even know what to do, right? We don't even know what the rules are. Are we keeping the rules? Have we broken the rules? We don't even know where we stand with you. That's why this whole your God thing kind of makes us unsure. So God says, I know. Before I give you the rules, I want you to know that you are mine and I'm yours. Let's get that clear before we start talking about anything else. A really interesting thing happened in Egypt. After the plagues, at the end, the Egyptian economy is devastated. Pharaoh is flummoxed. He just doesn't know what to do anymore. God speaks to his people through his prophet Moses. God has one thing he wants you to do. There were no 10 commandments yet. What's the one thing? While we're still in Egypt, God says he wants you to trust him. God's message for you is simply this: trust me. Tonight, before you go to bed, I want you to slaughter a sheep, a lamb, which is something that they did all the time. And I want you to have a meal together, which is something that they did all the time. But I want you to take some of the blood of that lamb and I want you to put it over your door. And I want you to put it down the sides of your door. Why would we do that? That's gross. That's going to ruin the value of my house. God says, trust me. No, but seriously, honestly, what difference does it make if we do it or not? God says, trust me. No, but what difference is it going to make? Why should I bother? And God says, trust me. And so that night, the majority of the Jewish people had a special meal. They slaughtered a lamb, and they took the blood of that lamb, and they put it over their door, and they put it down the sides of their doors. And then they packed everything that they owned because they were told that the next day they would be leaving. Really? I mean, we've been in slavery for 400 years, but we're leaving tomorrow? Trust me. But that's really hard to do. This whole thing seems incredibly unlikely to me. Trust me. And that night the angel of death entered Egypt, and it passed over every household where the blood was over the door and down the sides of the door. And the next morning Pharaoh said, go. Take everything you own and take anything else that you want. Just go. Get out of here. And from that moment on, the Jewish people would celebrate the festival Passover to remember. To remember not the 10 commandments, not the law of God. To remember this night when God whispered to the nation, I just want you to trust me. And in trusting me, you will find your deliverance from slavery and from Egypt. And now 3 weeks later, they are gathered at the foot of Mount Sinai. Okay, now I'm going to give you some law. But let's make sure you don't forget the most important thing. Let's start with the most important thing. Let me emphasize the most important thing. I am the Lord your God. You are my people. I am the one who delivered you from slavery. Got it? Now, after acknowledging that, now here are some things I want you to do. As we learn to live together, I want to help you learn to live together that we might grow into one. Proper horizontal relationship and proper vertical relationship all at once. And then he gave them their first commandment. The first one. First commandment. Exodus chapter verse 3. Exodus 20, verse 3. You shall have no other gods before me. To which the whole nation collectively went, I get it. I mean, you just delivered us from slavery. You ensure that we have a future, that our children have a future, that our grandchildren have a future. We're going to have our own land. We're going to have our own leader. And all you want is to make sure that we have no other gods before you? Yeah, you can put a check in that box. We're good. Of course we're not going to have any other gods before you. Who can compete with a God who completely wrecked the economy in Egypt, the most powerful nation on earth? Who embarrassed Pharaoh, said to be a god, delivered us from slavery. You are our God, no problem and no question. Now here's something to think about, okay? The 10 Commandments were confirmation of, not a condition of, Israel's relationship with God. They were God's people before they did any of those 10 things. They were not things that needed to get done first. This was not an entrance exam. 1,500 years before Jesus, 2,100 years before the Prophet Muhammad. As far as we can go back and connect law to God, this is the way God wanted it. It did not have to be this way. It could have been completely conditional. But in the very beginning, God made it clear to the nation of Israel, you are my people, even though you have done not a thing to deserve it. And now that we've established the relationship, I want to teach you how to live together and how to live under my authority. So let's get to the basics. Let's get to some clarity right at the beginning. Don't get confused. Don't get mixed messages. Don't have any other gods before me. Stay focused. What else do I need to do to demonstrate to you that you can trust me? And if you've ever tried to read the Old Testament, you might notice this, okay? Genesis can be kind of fun, right? There's lots of stories. Exodus has a lot going on. It's a screenplay for a big budget movie. Then you get to the 10 Commandments in chapter 20. That's right. But then after that, oh boy, here comes a curveball. You hit Leviticus. That throws you a little. Then you get to Numbers. And then Deuteronomy. And you go, hey, didn't you already say all of this? And then you work your way along to the prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel and all their friends, all the prophet buddies. And you say, why does it seem like it's the same thing over and over and over? Why are there so many ranting, raving, angry men, probably with long hair and beards, that are just condemning everything? Then somehow in the middle of that, they say one kind of nice thing about what God's like, and there's a worship leader who swoops in, picks that up, makes a song out of that line or two, and then it all slides back into that judgment language again. Why? Why is it like that? The prophets are evidence that God wasn't going to give up on his people, even when they disobeyed the laws. So prophets are a display of God being a good parent. The prophets are all about God saying, 1, 2, don't make me pull this car over, 3, okay, you're in timeout. Time after time, nations were getting put into timeout. And one time he even said, I have warned you, and I have warned you, and you have ignored me, and you have ignored me, so now I'm going to put you in timeout for 70 years. Go sit in the corner over there in Babylon for 70 years. But remember, I'm going to bring you back. God stayed true. I am not giving up on you. I chose you to be my people. I have worked on your behalf before you ever did anything for me. I did it all before I ever gave you the first thou shalt or thou shalt not. And the history of Israel is a history of God saying, it's not the club model. It's the family model. With God, relationship precedes rules. God opts for the family model over the club model. That's how He treated the nation of Israel. The question today, and maybe for you, is that how He treats you? And the direction that we are moving today is towards you believing that the rules are confirmation of, not a condition of, a relationship with God. He only gives rules to His kids, to His people, that He is already in relationship with. Dramatic pause. Now, if that's true, then regardless of where you land, under whatever religious system you ascribe to, you know what's staggering? All that ranting and all that raving. The nation of Israel is a model. You can rebel and be disobedient. You can go too far to the left. You can go too far to the right. You can forget things. You can get things mixed up. You can do your own thing, and God keeps coming back over and over and over again. He will keep disciplining and disciplining. He is disciplining you not to pay you back for that other stuff, but to bring you back like a good parent would. And that is just truly staggering. And I think that's not a message that we have heard very much. That says so much about the expansive wealth of God's love and God's mercy, God's grace. But what if Abraham, and what if the nation of Israel are the aberrations? Or what if God placed favorites? What if God just liked Abraham? He chose Abraham and He chose Israel, but He never said anything about Canadians. What if everybody else just has to work at it really hard, and then one day later, a long time later, then God would tell us how we did? What if it's like that? You got the commandments, get to work. Work your way in, and you'll never really know where you are. And to make sure of that, I will not make the standard clear enough for you to just know on your own. You won't know if I grade on a curve. And maybe some years I'm an easy marker, like during COVID maybe. And some years I'm a hard marker, like during COVID maybe. You don't know. What was good enough for them might not be good enough for you, and you just spend your whole life doing the best that you can, no slip-ups, and I'll let you know how you did, but let's just save that until the day of judgment. No need for you to know that now. So we're going to add this into our base camp. And as you are considering all of this and working it through, trying to identify your starting point for faith, factor this in. When God made the promise to Abraham that we talked about in those previous episodes, when God initiated His relationship with Israel, one thing is absolutely for certain. If you go and read that narrative yourself, you will see it clearly. This was not about Abraham. And it wasn't even about the nation of Israel. It was always about all mankind. All humanity. And here's how we know that. Remember the promise to Abraham, Genesis 18:18? You're going, yes, of course I remember that. All the nations on earth will be blessed through you. All the nations, everyone. Not just the nation that you will become, Abraham. Not just the nations that you will become. Later on, the prophet Isaiah would say to the nation of Israel in Isaiah chapter 49, verse 6, I will also make you a light to the Gentiles, that my salvation may reach to the ends of the earth. Outflow. This is not just about the Jewish nation. From the beginning, from the always, it was always about the whole world, all nations. But you will be like a signpost, a beacon, a lighthouse, a reflection to the rest of the world, that my salvation may reach to the ends of the earth. Because Israel, I love you. Israel, I have chosen you. Israel, it's bigger than just you. This has always been about the whole world. So we shouldn't be completely surprised that about 1,500 years after the giving of the law, Jesus walks onto the planet, and what does he do? What does he do before he demands anything? He goes and he turns nature upside down, right? He heals the lame, heals the blind, he stopped storms, he spoke to the wind. He does things that no one can imagine. He does things that no human being can do. And he does things, and those that are right with him, they're watching him, they're closest to him, they watch and they were often terrified at his power. And then he said, trust me. Because the promise that God fulfilled to Abraham and the promise that God fulfilled through Israel is the promise for all men and all women. As it began with faith through Abraham, as it continued by faith through the nation of Israel. So should we be surprised that such a message to the world would be extended by the prophet, the Lord Jesus Christ? So John, who knew Jesus so well, John was the one that Jesus called upon. When he's on the cross, he says, John, take care of my mother. When talking about what it was like being around Jesus, this is what he wrote, John chapter 1, verse 12. Yet, to all those who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Behaved or believed? Club model? Club members? Employees? Neighborhood association members? Children. Children of God. Jesus said, as God began a nation through Abraham, as God adopted the nation of Israel as his own, so that invitation to become a child of the living God has been extended to all of humanity. Which means it's the family model. Which means that anything that God requires of you is evidence of my love for you. Anything I ask you to do is evidence of the fact that we have a pre-established relationship. You can trust me because all along it has been about you. Now here's a question that I would love for you to answer out loud with a group of people or at least one other person. Out loud. Growing up, did you feel like, this is not a theological question, did you feel like religion was based on the family model, the club model, or the neighborhood association model? What was your experience? Did it feel like you were in no matter what? Nothing would change your relationship? Once you believe, you're in? Or did it feel like if you kept your end of the bargain, things would work out okay. But if you didn't, then you were out. Or did you grow up just never really knowing where you stood at all? Maybe God would throw you out. Maybe he'd keep you in. But you felt that he really didn't like you very much, even if he kept you. What's been your experience? Share that with somebody else this week. Kind Father, thank you so much for the way this story has developed over such a long period of time, that your gentle nudge to us has been the same. Trust me. Trust me. I will do these things for you. I will do them before we have this trust relationship. I will show that these things, this is the way I am. And then, trust me. After we have that cleared up, that you are our God and we are your people, after we get that clear, then we move to how do we live that out every day. God, today, I know that there are people here who are wrestling with a tenuous relationship with their faith in the past, one that might be tenuous right now. And we've got some history that we go back. We've got some hurt that's back there. It's a long time, and we haven't been able to really process it. We don't know how we feel for sure, but we know we didn't like that very much. And that's impacted the way that we see you and the way that we see others around us. Lord Jesus, I pray that you would bring us to a place of healing. That we would be looking primarily to you first, before those who have your name. We look to you before we look to the people who tell us that they represent you. Bring healing, Holy Spirit, I pray. There are wounded hearts here. There are wounded spirits. Bring them to freedom and to peace with you, please. And give us courage to face whatever it is that we need to face this week as we go forward. Thanks for being so faithful and so patient with us. Please don't stop. And pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.